the reason why I broke out the, culturally specific communities is I wanted you to be assured that we are really going to do due diligence in reaching those specific communities. So whether the PCOC or NCR leads these general public sessions, but those are some of the identified host sites as well as the geographies. We were trying to at least get as many of geographically our community that we can. With the engagement sessions underway, once we get them scheduled, of course, it's very, very critical that the community is aware of it and how we message that out. And so here is by no means, it's not an all-inclusive list, but those are specific for sure strategies that we'll be using to get the information out to all of the communities that I've mentioned, as well as the general public, to make sure that they are aware that not only are we hosting these sessions, but there'll also be an opportunity. The police department, the PCOC, and NCR will be working to set up, if you would, an online opportunity to also give comment during the month of March. So if someone was not able to attend any of these community forums, that they still have an opportunity to give input into the policy. And with our public sessions, again, our culturally specific communities will also be notified of the public sessions. All these sessions are considered open to the public. Some bigger, broader strategies, kind of our standard go-tos when we have our public hearings, our community forums, et cetera. But we will also be utilizing our culturally specific communities, organizations, and strategies of reaching the community to inform them of these public, the geographically specific, not necessarily targeted to a particular community. And then we have our very robust timeline. My team is working with community organizations right now to get the host sites confirmed for the community engagement sessions around the policy. We're hoping to have all of those confirmed by the 7th. I will be more than happy to keep you all informed as these sessions are confirmed. And we are also hoping that all of the information disseminated out to the community of the times, places, locations of these public engagement sessions by the 11th. We would like to close the online public comment and actually hopefully have all of the community engagement sessions completed by the 30th so we can prepare as rich and detailed of a report back to this committee and council by the 30th, or I'm sorry, by the April 6th, which I believe the staff directive for the police department stated. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
You know, if I may start first,
Sure.
you know, I look on page 8, which is the page with regards to doing notification of engagement sessions, and seeing radio, flyer, translated materials, all that different stuff, and all I think are dollar signs. So where's the budget coming from? How much is it? Do you have an idea? What does that look like?
With the engagement sessions, it is the city's policy to provide materials in alternative languages,
Sure.
as well as at these sessions, at all of the sessions, there will be interpreters available, and that budgetarily will be worked out between MPD and NCR, I believe.
Let me ask you, I mean, so you want a radio spot on, you know, Spanish radio, you want it on KMOJ, you want it on Hmong radio, you want it on Somali radio, you want it on all that stuff, or
Right.
That's maybe the hope from what I've been seeing here. And so that's going to cost some money unless you're good buddies with all those folks. So
we actually do have quite a good relationship with several of the media outlets that are culturally specific. We even have a radio show on La Raza that we'll be using to disseminate this message. So our hope is that because of the importance of this issue, and it's definitely something the community wants to hear from. And it is newsworthy, I believe, for a lot of these media outlets, that more than likely there won't be a charge. If there is,
So you're thinking free radio. Okay, good luck.
I know. But there are definitely other strategies beyond radio. And radio works for some communities, whereas it doesn't work as successful as other communities. There's a lot of the cable networks that are looking for these type of stories and to share this type of information. We have our neighborhood organizations, our business associations. There's a lot of other opportunities and all the community organizations that we hope to touch, especially our culturally specific ones, have their own messaging channels too. We actually do look to them quite a bit. They know how to reach their community very successfully. So we'll be really using our relationships and our partnerships with the community-based organizations.
Okay. Councilmember Gordon, you.
I had a couple comments. I don't know if they're questions. One comment just in response to that. I think we could get some mileage with media release and public service announcements on a lot of these stations. And as soon as you announce, I think that Councilmember Yang's happy to appear on anybody's show. We can have it all over the place. Just kidding.
I'll definitely make it a selling point.
But I do think that I do think that's true. I just wanted though to note that I was very impressed and delighted. So to see the report and just to see that on the cover that it was worked on by the police department with the Police Conduct Oversight Commission and the Department of Neighborhood and Community Relations, all working together on this. I think that's fantastic. And I think it's more robust than I expected. And I know that it's commitment of resources, not necessarily just funding for extra funding like for translators and those things that we might need, but also our own staff resources. But I think it warrants this kind of engagement, and I'm hopeful that the PCOC will agree to be a lead partner. I think it makes total sense. I believe they went out to do 3 similar meetings early on and I think there was even a commitment and expectation that they might do this again from the community. So I'm hopeful about that. I was a little bit curious in the timeline in terms of the PCOC, and I was trying to get their calendar so I could look at this in terms of when they have the opportunity themselves to review the draft. So if they're engaged in getting public input, I'm sure they'll want to gather that public input and then also reflect on the draft. And so if the final draft comes back April 6th, I know they're meeting on the 8th this month. So that's probably when they're going to gather the input and give some feedback. Maybe you could just, but they won't have time to meet again, I think, then after the public input, correct?
Yes, Chair Yang, Councilmember Gordon. So yes, the PCOC and the commissioners, my understanding, have just recently received the preliminary policy. The meeting is scheduled, their next meeting is scheduled for the 8th. I want to also make sure we're very respectful for them as a body to have some robust discussions about this. They took the lead last time in terms of the community engagement rollout. We certainly want to be sensitive and respectful to them in terms of what that looks like to them this next time around. But because of those timeline parameters, I think we'll clearly get more information, more likely perhaps around the 8th when they conduct their next meeting and they've had an opportunity to really have some discussions on what that looks like. So I know we're also kind of working with the timeline of when we're expecting to get the equipment, the body-worn cameras, sometime in May, and how that lines up with ultimately a policy to roll out. But I just want to make sure that we're respectful of the PCOC's position on this and what that framework looks like in terms of a community engagement rollout. So,
yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. And I would also say that presenting to the PCOC is a piece of this community engagement. So that in the bigger plan, that would be one thing that you're doing. I also want to commend you for putting out the press release and pushing out the draft policy as quickly as you have, even before this meeting, at least so between the 2 meetings. So I appreciate that and that it's getting out there in the public. I think there was even a story in the newspaper about it today. And so I think that's also very, very helpful and part of the community engagement plan is sharing that. And I'll certainly be talking about it in my next newsletters and my when I go out to neighborhoods and business associations too.
I wanted to add one last comment. With the folks who are doing the Working Families group and the type of engagement that those folks were doing just all across the city and just in such a short timeline. I mean, if I could impart any wisdom, I would just say, look to those guys and what they're doing, because if you do anything close to that, I think that would be great for the city of Minneapolis in terms of the sort of engagement that we want to see out of, doing body cameras for the whole city, because the whole city needs to know that this is something that we're going to roll out soon, and this is something that people should expect, and this is something that is really important and a priority to our city. And so to have that sort of engagement, because we understand from what you both are saying that this engagement on the body cams is going to happen in a short time period, I mean less than a month basically, before you all report back to us. And so in that sort of situation, it's going to be a blitz to get this information out to everyone. And I would encourage looking to the folks who are looking at sick paid time as to what you can do in terms of reaching out to everybody from cultural communities to businesses to anybody and everybody in between. I mean, those guys have just done a ridiculous job in terms of outreach. And so if I could, give you anything, I mean, look to those guys and do what you're going to do.
Committee Chair Yang, council members, we were actually a partner of that and handled a huge majority of that. So this actually is following very closely the model that we used for the Workplace Partnership Group.
Thank you. Council members, any questions further? All right, seeing none, I will move that we receive this report. Any discussion? All right, those in favor of this, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have the next item, which is to receive a staffing chart from the police departments regarding assignments and the staff. And DC Arredondo, are you the person?
I'm sorry, Chair. This is for the staffing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I know you're about to walk out, but
No, I was actually- Chair Yang, committee members, yes, I will be reporting back regarding our Minneapolis police staffing and response time calls for our priority 1, 2, and 3s. And I just wanted to confirm if you all have received the document. Well, yeah, okay. So on page 2 of that document, we are looking at response times from phone pickup to the arrival of the officers. And the priorities are broken down by priority 1, 2s, and 3s. And just for your clarification, priority 1 calls that are dispatched through our MECC are described as situations where there's an existing risk to personal safety, health, or the loss of damage to property. Conditions at the scene of the call are unstable. Speed of action is of significant concern to protect personal safety and or limit loss of damage to property.
yeah. DC Arredondo, if you can give me a second, let me just clarify some things real quick, okay? You know what? From what I can tell from this, let me clarify for the record, there are 2 items that are related to the police. Discussion item number 11 and 12. Item number 11 is to receive a staffing chart of police department assignments, and item number 12 is to receive quarterly reports of police response times. And with regard to the response times, we're going to postpone that to April 20th, 2016. And, with the staffing chart, my sense of what that is page number 8 that we're receiving. Is that what you think too, Councilmember Quincy? Okay. I have it pulled up on the RCA here, and basically staffing levels by precinct, we had some confusion over the staff direction in terms of, what we were going to receive in. And I think for us, with regards to police response times, we can postpone that to April 20th, 2016. And, council members, if I can just go a little bit off script and just move that item to be postponed until the April 20th, 2016 meeting, then we can just deal with item number 11, and then we can just kind of go from there. So, council members, any discussion on that motion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We will postpone item number 12 until the April 20th, 2016 meeting. And DC Arredondo, I apologize with regards to that. With regards to receiving a staffing chart of police department assignments, from what I can tell, I think page 8 of that presentation addresses that, but if it doesn't, I will come back to the MPD with regards to what else we need related to that, and we'll just kind of go from there. But from what I can see from the staffing levels, DC Arredondo, can you just address page 8?
Chair Yang, committee members. Yes, as you look at page 8 there, we have broken down by precinct, by the 5 precincts in the city of Minneapolis, and we've focused on years 2013, 2014, and 2015, the last quarter of 2015. From the year 2013, staffing levels at 1st Precinct were numbered at 120 personnel, 2nd Precinct, 83, 3rd Precinct, 121, 4th Precinct, 120, and 5th Precinct, 101 personnel. In 2014, you will see that 1st Precinct had 107 personnel, 2nd Precinct, 88, 3rd Precinct, 109, 4th Precinct, 112, and 5th Precinct, 93. Now, for the last quarter of 2015, 1st Precinct's personnel was listed as at 108, 2nd Precinct at 91, 3rd Precinct at 112, the 4th Precinct at 126, and 5th Precinct at 97. And Chair Yang and committee members, just to note here, in 2014 and 2015, those numbers no longer includes the gang enforcement team of 9 people included in Precinct 3 in prior years, and does not include the 11 FTEs from the License Division, previously included in Precinct 1. This also excludes K9, which has 16 FTEs for 2015.
And DC Arredondo, I mean, with regards to 2015, I mean, we're getting quarter 4 of 2015, but I mean, why didn't we get, I guess, just for the whole year? I mean, and do those numbers match? Let's say, 2015 versus 4th quarter of 2015, I mean, do those numbers match at all? Or, what's the difference? I mean, I'd like to see that at some point. But I mean, I think the other question that begs to be asked is, with regards to, let's say, 2016, where we are at now, I mean, I think it'd be good to just see where we're at, just to see if there's any differences, because I think one of the issues that we're having in the 4th Precinct is just this, typically speaking, I mean, we have a large number of phone calls, large number of, issues that happen up there, and relative to staffing, I mean, we're having, or from the policymaker perspective, we're having, the response times aren't as great. And, I mean, if you look up previously, I mean, you see that the response times up in the 4th Precinct relative to anywhere else is about 2 minutes more for priority 1 calls. And that's disturbing to me. I'm just wondering, how we can fix that, and does staffing, fix that problem, or what else we need to do to make that better? Because I think for the folks who live, let's say, in wards 7, wards 5, and wards 4, we want that sort of response time to match what happens in other places. Because if not, I mean, it's an inequity issue. So, that's kind of where where I'm coming from. I imagine Council President Johnson feels a little bit the same way. And, unfortunately, she's not here today. But just this idea that, in terms of responding to crimes or the phone calls that are happening, that, we're seeing those numbers and they just don't really match up with the type of service that maybe we expect from MPD all across the city.
Chair Yang, committee members, to your point, absolutely. So I know that from Chief Harteau to our precinct inspectors, we're really looking at how response times correlate with staffing numbers, particularly as you break them down towards shift times as well out at the precincts. And so, yes, and of course, there's always the internal movement that happens during a staffing year throughout the department as well. But it's something that we can certainly, as you indicated, can have a deeper discussion about that. But we are clearly looking at the response times through the year, which precincts are impacted by that, if we're seeing increases in those priority one calls particularly, and how we can best manage those resources throughout the city. And you indicated 4th Precinct. And yes, when we look at certain priority one calls, yeah, we want to make sure that all of our community members, but particularly those who are calling in when they need it the most, that response is getting there to them. So,
And, Councilmember Gordon, if you can indulge me for just a second, with regards to Q4 2015, I mean, we kind of have a sense of, maybe was it a blip, because the last quarter, we had the occupation and certainly that affected some response times and maybe that affected some staffing as well. But, just seeing what were the actual numbers in the whole year relative to just the Q4 would be helpful. So, I'd love to see that at some point.
okay. Chair again, committee members, absolutely.
And Councilmember Gordon.
So I think there might be something missing from here that it was intended with the staff direction more than just the precinct levels, although that's really important too. I think there was an issue of how many police aren't at the precincts and where are they assigned. Sometimes there's a perception that we had the administration so much and there aren't enough officers as directed patrol, or sometimes we fight up here about how many investigators we need as opposed to cops on the street. You know what I'm talking about? So I'd be curious. So I added up, I think, what the Q4 was, and it came up to 534 officers. And so that's obviously not the whole department. So there's obviously a number of officers in other divisions doing great work, no doubt. And I think if we could have a little bit of a breakdown of that, what's administration, investigators, other homicide units, and breakdown to other units, maybe, if that's something you no doubt have numbers for. I think that might be something that, and it wasn't my staff direction again, but something that we were thinking, when we can get that as well. But I always appreciate seeing the precincts and notice that my poor little 2nd precinct never has as many as anybody else.
Chair Gang, Councilmember Gordon. Yes, we can provide the numbers as they relate to our other investigation administrative types of positions as well.
Well, I have to jokingly say, I think folks up, on the north side would trade the crime rates that happen up there for what happens in your precinct. And we would probably have less officers and we'd be happy with that. So it's a give and take. But no, certainly, I think for us, it's just important that, the level of crime that happens up on the north side relative to the staffing. Something's off, or maybe we have to, figure that part out to get the right numbers, just so that at the end of the day, the folks out there are getting served right. That's the important part for all of us. So thank you, DC Arredondo. Council members, Councilmember Wright.
Thank you, and I appreciate the conversation. Look forward to further analysis as we've allowed time for. But I know we've had previous conversations, and I'd feel remiss if I didn't mention there is a baseline number for any precinct to do what it needs to do on a most fundamental level, regardless of the crime rate. There could be zero crime, but there's still functions of police, a presence that needs to be there. There's certain logistics and time motion management that just, there's a baseline, and then we have to have that baseline for every precinct. And then I think, as the chair is suggesting, we make adjustments accordingly based on need too. But I would never want to rob Peter to pay Paul and go below what would be a baseline level for what we would consider a professionally functioning precinct in any corner of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wright. DC Arredondo, anything to say about that?
Chair Yang, Councilmember Wright. Yes, we certainly, as we look at all of our precincts throughout the city, They have to be staffed enough to have that core baseline operational function. Primary, that's consistent upon 911 response. And then also we want to make sure, as Chief Harteau has really been trying to push, getting our officers out of the cars, building those relationships and what have you. But yes, to your question, yes, each precinct has to at least have that kind of core operational function to make sure that the officers are safe and yet they have enough resources to get out there and respond in a timely manner to help our community members when they call 911. So, yes.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, I will move that we receive the staffing chart from the MPD. And any discussion on that? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. With that, we are done with our agenda for today. And thank you for indulging with all of this stuff. We're done. So I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you. Whew.